Cemetery care. This is actually a Texas photograph. I don't know the city. They didn't tell me. This is my only stolen photograph that I ever used, but I love it. Found it on the website, genealogical website. This is a family get-together. This is a family cleanup day. And everybody's got their shovels and their rakes. They've got buckets of what I'll assume is probably lime wash, buckets of detergent. If we had this still, we wouldn't probably be doing this talk. We have lost this. This used to be what kept cemeteries up. That's a lot of people coming out for one day worth of work. You know, I'm happy to get 30 people to show up when we advertise it in the paper and it runs for 2 months about a cemetery cleanup day and we get 30. Everyone's ecstatic. This is a lot of people. I've talked to people who said, oh yeah, you know, my family's together, there's 100 people or more would come out once a year. They cleaned the cemetery, they pulled the plants back, they knew which ones they had planted. People move away. We saw a big shift after World War II, especially after the Depression. People moved, people relocated, they didn't come home, they lost that connection. Now that's not their home cemetery, it's just some cemetery down the road, and we don't really have that as much anymore. All right, so before we talk about cleaning, we're going to hit material issues really quick. If it's possible, you want to identify the materials that you're cleaning. It does make a difference. You want to evaluate the surface condition. Is it too fragile to clean? If the answer is yes, we don't need to clean it. No matter if you cleaned everything around it and go, but it doesn't look good now. If it's going to do more damage than leaving it, we should leave it. Will the cleaning remove the original material? Marble. This is kind of dark. Marble actually comes in a variety of color. We have a pink Tennessee marble over here. We have a gray marble in the middle from Vermont. And then, of course, we have our white marble that we're most used to. We'll see a lot of marbles today, and we'll look at them out in the field. Marble is an acid-sensitive material. Marble is very absorbent. Basically, what you have is you have calcite crystals. So we can see over here this big shiny spot. That's a crystal polished in half. Around that, you have a calcium carbonate binder. So you have a very thin white border that holds this together. The calcium carbonate binder is very absorbent. The problem is, and why this becomes a problem is, this is so absorbent, a lot of the cleaners that we use could be damaging to it. For example, bleach. Why bleach looks so good when you first clean something is it actually eats that first layer right off. So it does look cleaner because you've got an all-new layer. You've just removed the outer surface of it. That's one reason that bleach damages. The second reason that bleach is so damaging is bleach leaves a lot of salts behind. Leaving those salts behind, once the sun comes out, the liquid evaporates, the salt crystals grow behind. They push those boundaries apart. They push those crystals out and break that boundary. It's a really simple experiment to really see what bleach does. Pour a little bit in a glass dish, leave it on the counter for a day, let the liquid evaporate, and you'll see it'll leave behind large crystals. Now, those are stronger than the stone is. That's where the big damage comes in. That's why we don't recommend using bleach. Limestone. Limestone used to be really common. It's really common in Texas. There's a lot of native Texan limestones. Soft material, real easy to carve. Also very acid sensitive, just like our marble. Limestone, it's a fossil base. A lot of times you'll see under low magnification, you'll see little fossils, little worm trails, little shells. In the last couple of years, I've got a lot of people call me and say, well, we've got this concrete marker. It's not really that great. And you go out and go, well, it's not concrete. It's actually limestone. People have sort of forgotten a little bit about limestone. They think more about concrete now. Very similar color. Big fan of concrete markers myself. A lot of times very vernacular. You know, we have examples like on my far right. How many people recognize the little lamb on top? It's an old cake mold. They poured concrete into it, turned up, remember the old aluminum cake molds? Yeah. And grandmother used to use one at Easter every year. A lot of times you see very vernacular things. You can have them even as artistic as over here. This is a Texas sculptor. Worked a lot around the turn of the century. A lot of sandstones. Very soft material, very easily degraded. And, of course, granite. We see a lot of granite. There's a lot of granite out there today. We'll look at granite's what we see more common now. Granite comes in almost a rainbow of colors. There's some really beautiful stuff coming out of Africa now that's bright blue, real pale blues, almost a full rainbow of color. Very hard material, very hard to carve, very durable. Be careful, this isn't acid sensitive. This is a very durable material. 98-point-something% of all the markers coming out now are granite. The cleaners and the methods used by modern monument shops are made for granite. They don't work on marble anymore. Most of them, I do a lot of work with the monument builders in North America. Most of them don't know even how to work on marble anymore. They've gotten rid of the tools. They've gotten rid of the techniques. We're 2-3 generations back from anyone doing marble work. So be careful if you go to a monument builder and get cleaners or get supplies from them. They're more than likely made for granites. SureClean is a really, really popular cleaner that most monument builders use. It's salt-based. It will tear marble and limestone apart. Works fine on granite. Doesn't have any effect on granite. But it'll tear marble and limestone apart. And that's something that they use a lot. And for them, it works really great. So it's an okay thing for them to go, oh, well, sure, we use this and it works great. And we'll talk about a couple other methods like that. All right, cleaning issues. Why are we cleaning the monument? This reason, readability. We talked about earlier, genealogy being such a big thing. A lot of times, the only thing we're cleaning it for so we can read it. We can transcribe it. We can take the photography of it. We can document it. And that's the only reason we want to clean it. It's a great reason. Probably the biggest reason that they get cleaned. The only thing to really think about before doing this is to make sure you clean the entire monument, not just the epitaph. We don't want that discolored area. Clean the whole thing. Go ahead and take that extra effort. Soiling. Just general dirt. Water got splashed up on it. Mud's got splashed up on it. A lot of times, just water and a soft bristle brush is all you need to take this off. We don't need anything more complicated than that. So it's important to know why you want to clean before you start cleaning. You can choose your cleaning method depending on what you're trying to remove. Staining, especially metallic staining. This is something you might want to have to hire a conservator. Hire a professional to come in, do that sort of extra treatment to take off. For example, we have the ship over here. It had a bronze, unfortunately it's gone now, had a bronze plaque above it. This is in Galveston, Texas, I think. We got iron staining over here. It used to have 2 iron pins in it. Iron rusted, migrated out, stained the marble. Our cleaner, our soap and water isn't going to remove those at all. You're going to have to do something, poultice treatment. Sugaring. This is what's caused from deterioration, usually by the use of harsh cleaners. What we call sugaring is you can actually run your hand over it, it comes off, it looks like sugar. It's all those little grains coming off. That's the marble coming apart. Generally, that can be caused by 2 things. Acid rain, a lot of times, especially in this region, the south, east of the Mississippi, we're seeing not as much acid rain. We're actually seeing a lot of times it's due to maintenance practices in the past. Pressure washing, bleach, harsh cleaners, they leave the surface. Deterioration, gypsum crust. We talked a little bit about that earlier. This is a blow-up of gypsum crust. So this is where acid rain actually converts the marble into gypsum. How many here have ever laid drywall, sheetrock? That white powder inside it is gypsum. That's a naturally occurring material. It actually converts the marble into gypsum, which if you've ever busted open a piece of sheetrock, you know how soft that material is. That's why it's really important, if you get that crust, probably to call a conservator to come in, because once it's cleaned behind, what you have is that fine powder and it just washes away once that crust is removed. Biological growth, probably the thing that most people are interested in. And this is what we'll talk more about when we're outside today. Using a cleaner, if you're trying to remove for biological growth, you probably want a cleaner that contains a biocide. This is an added element that actually kills and poisons the biological growth on the stone and continues to weaken that biological growth. Vandalism. This has to go up to your top priority if you get it. You know, what are we going to do to get this off? And there's, it's a more complex issue. If any of you have that, I'd be happy to, give me a call, that sort of thing. What are some of the things you have to consider regarding cleaning methods? Will the cleaning accelerate the deterioration? Well, we don't want that, so we might want to consider a different cleaning method. Are you going to have loss of original materials? Is your Texas limestone too fragile, too flaky to clean? Long-term stability, that's a big thing. We want to look at, are the cleaners we're using, what are their long-term effects? Do we know? Has anyone done any tests? Look it up on the internet. Call people like me to ask, I want to use this cleaner. It's brand new, and a lot of new cleaners are coming out. I've literally got the corner of my office sitting full of boxes of people I've never heard of, who all of a sudden I start getting all these mailings. Hi, we heard you test cleaners. What do you think of ours? And they just show up. I don't know who these people are. Because of this thing we've been talking about, all this cemetery cleaning, all this genealogy, a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon. I can make a lot of money making this new cleaner. We're trying to look at as many of them we can to see what are the long-term effects. Do I know what's in this thing? Look on the cleaner itself. It'll list its contents. Now, it's not going to tell you the formula to make your own, but it's going to list its main ingredients. Also, a really good thing is, and I'll mention this more in a second, MSDS Sheets. It's the Material Safety Data Sheet. This is available for all cleaners, all products. On that, it'll tell you what its general chemistry is. If it's something with sodium, chlorides, chlorines, we know it's full of salt. Mechanical cleaning, acceptable. Low pressure power washing. That's anything under 300 psi. Your garden hose puts out about 100 psi, depending on if you've got a really old house like mine, the pipes are getting full, it's not quite that good anymore. Most power washers that you go to the hardware store and buy, they put out about 1,500 psi. And at that pressure, you can actually start to carve historic marble. We can actually start to carve our name into it. I have a picture of that. Mechanical agitation using a soft bristle brush. That's what we're going to do today. We'll talk about that a lot more. Unacceptable, sandblasting. Never a good idea, period, ever. High pressure washing. Grinders and wire brushes. This is something we never talked about till recently. This has become really popular for some reason, and you see this a lot on the internet. People saying, oh, well, I used to have a video that I pulled up and would run in this of a guy with a angle grinder with a cut brush with a big wire on it. You go, oh yeah, and it was this video feed that came across the network, and unfortunately a lot of news TV stations around the country picked it up, of this Good Samaritan doing all this work. And he was explaining how no one had cleaned this cemetery in 70 years, so he was cleaning the whole site. And he did 100 years worth of damage in one day, because it basically just ate away the entire surface of it with a wire brush, which also leaves iron behind, so in about 2 years, the whole stone's going to start turning pink. Do's and don'ts. We don't want to remove the original surface. Don't want to use our bleach. Don't want to use the pressure washer. Sandblasted. Also, strong acids and bases. I've talked to a lot of people, and I'll always get this look when I say this to people going, oh, okay. It happens. It happened last week. I was talking to a gentleman who said, well, can't we just put muriatic acid on it? It's really going to clean it. No. It is. It's going to remove the top surface of the material. Back to our original, don't remove original surface. Hydrochlorics, sulfuric, muriatic, all those really bad ideas. I actually I was a stonemason for a long time. We used muriatic acid to wash after we were done to get any leftover mortar. What we didn't realize is muriatic acid is actually a byproduct of the steel industry. It actually contains some iron in it. So you'll start to see new sidewalks and stuff after they've been cleaned. About a year later, they'll start to turn a red color. Great example, if you're ever in Natchitoches, they just built a new McDonald's. Beautiful building, all stone on the outside. They clean it with muriatic acid and they're done. The whole surface is weeping rust now. That's why. it reacts with any original iron ore in the stone. Back to our wire brush. Like I said, I hate to harp on it, but this never came up until a couple of years ago. And now almost every talk I give, I'll have someone come up to me later and say, oh yeah, we've been wire brushing. Pressure washing. This stone wasn't washed right before I took the photograph. This stone was washed about 2 years before I took this photograph. Why you see the clean line still, that's actually carved into it so it doesn't deteriorate the same as the surface. That's actually about 1/8 of an inch deeper than the surface of the stone. Good example of worst case scenario. Went to a site that called me and said, we've got real bad acid rain problems. Okay? It's deteriorating all of our stones. What can we do to treat it? Go out to the site and we notice only one plot in the whole cemetery is having acid rain problems. Okay? You know, you've made the rain gods mad. They're only, raining on one site. So we start looking at it and say, well, probably your problem wasn't acid rain. It's probably been a harsh cleaner used in the past. Do we know anything about it? When we started looking, it was a large family lot, fenced in. You can see the shadow of the fenced in area. And all of a sudden, we discovered only the women's graves looked like this. The men's looked fine. And one of the family members was there, fessed up, and said, oh, yeah, it was my grandmother. She came every week and cleaned her mother and all of her sisters and her grandmother and aunt's graves once a week with bleach. I have no idea why, but she didn't clean any of the men's graves. Men's graves were completely readable. We couldn't read the name on a single one of these. And that top real white part, you could actually take your fingernail and carve out like sand. Bleached it. That's those salts growing out. You could actually, it hadn't been bleached in years. You could pour water on it and still smell the bleach. It doesn't come out. It keeps regenerating every time it gets wet. Those salt crystals keep growing and going away. Sort of the do's and don'ts again. Do no harm, and Debbie mentioned that. We want to select the gentlest cleaning method to accomplish the task. This is also why we want to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Why are we cleaning? Perform small tests. We'll look at that. Follow the manufacturer's recommendations, usually on the label. If not, you can get instructional sheets. What do they recommend? What do they say? How much to use? Maybe you should dilute it in a concentration. Look at that. Instead of using the full concentration, maybe it says cut in half. Some of the cleaners that we'll use today out there have been cut in half, and we'll talk about those when we're out in the field. Safety guidance. These are these MSDS sheets we talked about, the Material Safety Data Sheet. What does that sheet recommend? Does that say you need a full respirator? If so, it's probably not good for the stone, but gloves, glasses, that sort of thing. Look to see what it says. And of course, exercise patience. Stone didn't get dirty in 15, 20 minutes. It's probably not going to come clean in 15, 20 minutes. That's something that people think, oh yeah, I know no one's cleaned the cemetery in 70 years, but we should be able to knock these out in like 5 minutes apiece, right? Take a little patience. As a general rule, I only like nylon or natural bristle brushes. I prefer natural, but nylon's all right too. If it's soft enough to use on your car, you're okay on historic stone. We'll talk about that when we're outside today. Gentlest cleaning methods. For basic cleaning, consider a non-ionic detergent. There again, that's listed on the MSDS sheet. Ionic detergents leave behind things that could potentially attract more dirt later. Neutral pH, or a pH similar to the stone. Marble has a pH of about 9.5. Neutral 7. We want to look to see our cleaner isn't, a 1. I tested a cleaner not too long ago that was recommended to me. Used it on a test site. Looked pretty decent. Tested the pH. It didn't even hardly read on the meter. It just turned it black. Ends up, it had the same pH as hydrochloric acid, which is basically about what it was. Yeah, did a great job cleaning. Definitely doing a lot of damage to the stone. You may want to consider a product that contains a biocide. And I've got 2 cleaners today that we'll talk about out in the field that both contain a biocide. Couple things to be careful of. If you do use a product that contains a biocide, 2 things can happen. The first is, when you get done, you look at the stone and you go, okay, it looks okay, let's clean it again. A biocide takes about 5 days to fully take effect. So in 5 days, that stone will be a lot lighter than what it was when you finished. Plus, stones always lighten when they dry as well. Keep that in mind if you're using a biocide. I've talked to people who say, I cleaned this stone 3 and 4 times consecutively, looked okay. You might want to clean it once, come back in a week. That one time was probably all you noted. I have very rarely ever cleaned a stone twice. Usually one time, I'm done. The other thing to consider with a biocide, we may see it today, I doubt it, we'll look at it. Some microorganisms, some algae, some funguses, they actually off-produce a chemical to try to survive. They're dying. That is a plant. They off-produce a chemical. Those chemicals sometimes react. I have seen stones turn hot pink, turn orange, turn purple. This is only a chemical being put off. It's in the suds. It's not on the stone. When the stone rinses, every bit of it will be gone. Make sure you don't let your stone dry out while this happens. But I've gotten a few frantic phone calls over the years from people going, I sprayed that stuff on you recommended and the whole thing turned pink. Oh my God. Did it rinse off? Well, yeah. It's that happening. I've only seen it happen a couple times. So inadvertently, it's if I don't tell people it happens, so I want to tell you. Small test patches, look at the different cleaners maybe that you thought about, people have told you about. Try them, come back in a week, see which one did better before you decide to clean a whole cemetery. Always follow the manufacturer's recommendations. No power washers, no wire brushes, always soft bristle brushes. Always soak the stone before you clean it. Talked about it before, stone is really absorbent. It'll take in a lot of water. This has a couple of reasons. One, if the stone is full of water, it's not going to absorb your cleaner. That's good for 2 things. Well, 3 things, really. It's going to keep any negative effects that the cleaner may have out of the inside of the stone, keep them right. Keep them from having trouble later. It's also going to keep the cleaner right on the surface of the stone because the stone is full of water. Keeping on the surface of the stone does 2 things. It saves you money. You use less cleaner because it's not all getting absorbed into the stone. 2, all of your actions happening right on the surface where you're wanting to clean. It's going to save you time and effort. You got to use a lot less elbow grease if your cleaner's staying right on the surface, as opposed to spraying on it, soaking all up inside the material. Start cleaning from the bottom and work your way up. That may sound kind of odd. On a little stone like this, a little VA stone, you're never going to see an issue with it. If you move to a larger stones, it actually helps minimize the streaking. It's running down a clean surface that's not really absorbent. It's had all it's going to take. If you're cleaning above, the surface below hasn't been cleaned, all that biological growth, all that dirt will absorb the stuff running down. You have a lot more work once you get to the bottom. So I've done it both ways. It actually works. It was recommended to me years ago in a book. I thought, that doesn't sound quite right. I tried it. It actually does do a much better job and reduce streaking if you start from the bottom and clean up. Small circular motion, that's only my own preference. It gets in the epitaph. It gets in the incised letters, the raised letters better. And then lots of water. You never, ever want your cleaner to dry on the surface. For example, we see how green this stone looks. That's all that biological growth coming off. If we stopped and walked away, that stone would be permanently stained that color. We can get it off, but it's a whole lot of work. I actually had that happen to me very early on. Water line broke. No one knew it. We went to rinse the stone. No water. Took us about 2 weeks to clean the stone after that. It left it this bright green. Basically, it makes a wash, like a stain for it. And then lots and lots of water to rinse it. This is me. This is our website. Also on our website at NCPTT, we have training videos that are free. You can order them or you can download them. You can order the DVDs for free on cleaning, resetting, repair of iron fencing, lime washing. What's yours, Debbie? Replacing trees in a historic setting. We have new videos coming out all the time. Survey forms, booklets, pamphlets, that kind of thing about cemeteries. Schedule of our training events, what stuff we have going on, lots of stuff. We're your free government money, so we're free consultants. We can't go out to your site and look at it, but you can send us pictures and I can give you recommendations. I do it all the time. I'm happy to do it. Happy for you to give me a call. Email's best. If you have a site that you have questions about, I'm happy to help you.